Okay, Saturday scrimmage, SFA Northwestern State, and get a chance to talk to an old friend, Sean Kiracofe. I'm thankful for him to be our first coach that we talked to this year as we sort of revive the SFA Volleyblog video series. Sean, thanks for coming over for the scrimmage, and also thanks for taking 10 or 15 minutes here to chat.
Appreciate it. Love this stuff.
All right, first thing I want to ask you is, you have 5 freshmen on your roster. SFA has 7, and a lot's been made during COVID about the changes in freshmen. What have you noticed through your career in terms of changes in freshmen? Have you seen any things that they're stronger on now than at the beginning of your career, or weaker? How do you see freshmen changing through time for you?
That's a great question, and yes, we talk about it all the time. This group's been fantastic. And then we talk about, we've already talked about COVID. COVID kind of messed things up. Everything was kind of up in the air. This group, I think, is finally the first, and this sounds bad to every previous group, normal group, of just like, okay, life has been a little bit, I don't know, we kind of know what we're getting into. Like, they're still, bright-eyed and like, okay, what's college volleyball going to be like? But it's no longer what's life and everything else going to be like. And they're getting those normal college experiences of just, those opening days where, the universities are doing different events and things like that. And so I don't know how to describe it other than this group just seems like a more normal group than the previous 2 to 3.
That echoes what we've seen here, and what I've seen on the academic side so far is just these last couple groups just bewildered because of the life changes that we all were going through. I read in your bio, this is your 8th year at Northwestern State, and that makes you the longest tenured coach in program history. Your thoughts on the meaning of that, the longevity of that, and what goals would you say in those 7 years so far have been accomplished, and what goals do you feel like are still out there to chase?
Yeah, it's good to be in one place, for a while. I've joked about this to just friends that, you get a new job, you go into the office and you do a deep clean of everything, and I've been there long enough where I now have to do a deep clean of my own mess. Yeah, exactly. And that's a good thing because it's rare, especially in coaching. We've enjoyed our time here, and I can go back to 2015, and we've talked about it at length. That 14 group that won the conference championship with our assistant Stacy Aldridge, and then it really was a real rebuild when I got there in 2015 because all that group graduated, and then I feel, I'm biased on this, that we've done a good job building it back up to the point where we were competitive. Specifically in 17, 18, 19, and 19 we got to where like, okay, this is where we want the program to be. And then we've had 2 rough years. COVID really hit us. We lost a lot of talent, and unexpectedly. And, I look at this year and year number 8, and while it's the longest tenured, like you said, in Northwestern, program history for volleyball, I look at this as year 1. We're back to 2015 in my mind, that we've got to build this back up to what we wanted and what we felt we had in 2019.
Do you feel like having done that, as you described that process, that gives you a vision for how to do it again? Coming in fresh, having to put your own ideas, your own recruiting style on the program and seeing it ascend, maybe having to do a little bit of that again, looking over your shoulder going, hey, we've done it once, we can do it again.
Yes. I'm always willing to bet on myself. I feel like it's not an easy process, but I know that we've done it before and we can do it again. And in 2019, while I loved our starting group, obviously Hannah Brister, Player of the Year, fantastic. And, I really thought going into 20, we finally had depth because we were returning the major pieces from 19. We had depth for the first time. We've had some groups that could go out there and compete in the conference, but if something were to go wrong with, either struggling on the court or an injury, it just all started to fall apart. And 20 was supposed to be that year where we finally got to the point where we had some depth. We didn't have to find talent and then bring them into the gym, and they had to play immediately. And then we had the rug yanked out from under us, and all of a sudden that depth happened to be young people on the court, and it was like, figure it out. This freshman group, I mean, we feel really fortunate that I feel like they are extremely talented and can immediately help us. And we have the two returning outsides in Simone Wesley and Bree Burrell that are all conference and have that experience. So we feel fortunate to be back in the position where we feel like we have some depth and the ability to do different things.
I want to circle back around about Simone and Bree. They were picked second team all Southland Conference. Those lists coming out just like the WAC lists this week. So I want to circle back around in just a second and talk about those two athletes and others. But one of the main things I wanted to ask you is this changing landscape that we're all involved in terms of conference changes. We remark around here that if things stay the way they are, that all of Northwestern State, Stephen F. Austin, and Sam Houston will be in 3 separate conferences next season, after a history of being rivals in the Southland. What's your just general take on that as it affects volleyball? What do you see as the pros and cons and all that conference realignment and all those dominoes falling?
It is crazy. And, I've been in this business long enough to be in some shuffles before. Specifically at SMU, we jumped around while we were in the Big East, which became, the American Athletic, and we've changed a couple conferences. So it wasn't necessarily new to me, so to speak, but for the breadth of it, I guess, of just across the country is unique. And I mean, no offense here, I felt like the move to the WAC was a bit crazy just because the WAC is so expansive and just there's a lot of different things that didn't make sense at the time. But and we've had some people come back, and so the Southland is looking a little bit more familiar than it was. But then, losing yourself and Sam Houston, that's still major pieces. So it's different.
It's expansive. We're going to play a conference match and fly to Seattle in a few months. So, okay, we talked a little bit about preseason polls and things. Your club picked 6th, middle of the pack. Of course, not much stock put in some of these. These are a lot of times looking back over shoulders about things. But again, middle of the pack. Texas A&M Corpus Christi and HBU picked at the top of the Southland this year. SFA picked 5th in the WAC. A lot of the schools in the top out in the western part of our conference. What do you see as your club's need-to-do list in order to span that gap between where you're picked and where you hope to finish, where you expect Corpus and HBU to be?
Mm-hmm. I look at it as our last 2 seasons as I take 6th as a compliment, to be honest. If you really are doing what you do on preseason polls and you're looking about, the past and what you have, 6th, I'm fine with it. But I believe we're better than that. And so then it's a battle for us. Clearly Corpus and HBU have enough that they are absolutely 1 and 2. There's no doubt about that. And then it's a matter of Southeastern has a lot of talent coming back. It's the battle to get 3rd and be in a position to then do something in the tournament is the way I see it. And so then we are fortunate in that we have a true double round robin, which we haven't had in years. And so we have the ability to see everybody twice, home and away, and to really have a good look at them and then know what we're going to be getting into in the tournament.
That's a great point. That's something that we didn't have in the WAC last year, obviously because of the geography. And I think Lady Jack volleyball fans know we got pitted against Chicago State and then Utah Valley in the WAC tournament, 2 teams that we had not seen at all until tournament time. Let's circle back around to some of your personnel. You referenced Simone Wesley, big addition for you last year. Great player. Well, I'm sure we'll see a lot of her today. Talk to me about the process of her moving she transferred from Houston. Talk to me about the process of her getting from the University of Houston to Natchitoches and the impact that those 292 kills and over 300 digs as a 6 rotation outside meant for you last year.
Yeah, she was unbelievably important, just as any time you have someone that's a 6 rotation outside that can produce in multiple ways is so important. And she was, just to, I don't know, talk about how good she was. She was the only outside that was in the top 10 in points scored per set and digs per set. And so that just shows how she is a big contributor in every area of the game. In the process, we saw her in the portal. We didn't have anything available at the time. Fortunately, something opened up for us, and she was, still there. And it just worked. And, oddly enough, so one of your players, Haley Hong, was on our roster, and they knew each other from club. And so there was a connection there of like, okay, that second recruiting process when a transfer is just it's one, you have an idea of the process and you know what's important and what you're looking for, but it's still, okay, where can I feel comfortable? And I think that had a lot to do with it, of just saying I had a former teammate there. So that really helped us out. And newcomer of the year in the conference, it was huge for us.
Well, that was great. I didn't realize she had a connection with Haley from club. And then you mentioned Bree Burrell, just a sophomore last year. Again, we have COVID waivers, and it's tough to know when you call somebody a sophomore or a senior whether they're where they are. But again, also right behind Wesley in offense for you at 286 kills, another big piece for you. Talk about her growth over the time she's been at NSU.
It makes it difficult to schedule because you don't know who's going to be on the roster or who's leaving. But Bree's been fantastic. Is just got a cannon for an arm. And now it's just how can we develop her as a player to become a 6 rotation and be in serve receive and then provide offense out of the back row. It's been a while since we've played, but I love offense out of the back row to try to speed things up in transition. So her hitting, whenever she touches the ball, she can get a kill. So then it's just a matter of being able to develop her so that we can get her the ball more often.
And Sean, let's finish this with a few pieces you want to put around those two. Those are the two that I think people that follow the Southland, saw the lists, watched Northwestern State last year are aware of. But give me one or two other names that have had a good camp or that look like they're pieces that you're going to have that are going to complement those two already anchored players for you.
I'm pretty happy right now that I feel like I could make this segment like a 20-30 minute segment of what we have. Addison McDermott Sr. is very similar to Simone in that she helps us everywhere.
She's one of the few that I remember that went from the Southland. I remember being in the gym when she was playing.
So you remember her as a middle. And we moved her to the outside. Now we've moved her to the right side. This is kind of a social media trend of teams have a little white lie practice where they wear white T-shirts and they will say something that they're not or whatever. And her white lie was, I only play one position. She's everywhere. So we love her on the right because she's a great blocker. We can run her in fast offense, as a middle, but we can drop her back and use her as a primary passer whenever we need to, or honestly, whenever possible. So she plays a big role for us. The 3 freshmen, our 3 attackers are phenomenal. We have Jordan Gamble in the middle, which gives us size and a very polished middle. I love her in that she never gets frazzled in situations, and she just handles crazy things really well and just makes good decisions with it. Reagan Thompson we can put anywhere, extremely athletic, great in the middle, but we can have her on the right side. And then Maddie McQueen is an outside and who could also play right side, who's just extremely long and athletic and fantastic. And something that, she's been on the roster for a while, but Perry Flanagan, when we got her, had some shoulder issues and has finally gotten to the back to the point where she has, that strength back in that shoulder. And she's big at the net, great blocker. And again, I could keep going,
Well, there you go. There's a great list of what we'll see here in the scrimmage today and all season long at Northwestern State. Always want to keep these Southland roots connected because, like you say, dominoes fall all the time. We've seen schools come back and travel. So we built up such a reputation here at SFA Volley Blog with covering the Southland that we want to continue to be faithful to that. And Sean's always been a big supporter of us and been kind enough to give us time with his player, Stacy too, by the way. Of course, she and I go way back. So Sean, appreciate the time. Really glad you're here. Have a great year in the Southland, and I definitely hope that we see you at your place. I know Prather's got some renovations. We'd love to come see that new floor. I hear a new scoreboard and things are going in and all that great stuff. So hopefully in years to come, SFA will make a trip to Northwestern State. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your time. I appreciate the conversation.
Appreciate it.